The Bible translated into Canadian by YouTuber Look at This Rock. Part 1, Genesis.
This, the heaven and the earth, and all the hosts of them, were finished, eh? And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done. And he had rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done, because he was bagged. Then God blessed his seventh day and sanctified it, because on it he rested from all his work which God had created, and made like the earth and the animals and the peg and poutine and mulson, and it was a total gonger. This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created. In that day the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, before any plant in the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown like barley for mulson. So, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground or buy a toofer, but a mist went up from the ground like a foggy day, watering the whole face of the ground, and made things really rough to drive in, for sure. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, Yeah. And man became a living being, but he coughed a lot because of all that dust kicking up his asthma, you know.
The story of Noah and the boat. For 40 days, the flood kept coming on Winnipeg, and as the waters increased, they lifted the boat high above the ground, The waters rose and increased greatly on Canada, and the boat floated on the surface of the water because it was a boat, right? And that's what boats do. They rose greatly over Canada, and all the high mountains under the havens were covered, even like Mount Logan in the Yukon. Yeah, the waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more like, at least 6 kilometers, right? Oh geez, every living thing that moved on land duppied. Moose, beavers, caribou, all the creatures that swarmed over the earth, and all the Canucks, Everything on dry land that had the beer of life in its mouth died, The only hoser that was left was Noah and those with him on the boat. The waters flooded the earth for a whole hockey season, But God, having gotten distracted by a rerun of the 1987 Canadian Cup Finals, remembered Noah and all the hosers and the wild animals that were with him on the boat, and he sent a wind over the territories and the waters receded, Yeah, no, definitely. The springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water had receded steadily from Canada, and there was a bare prairie gumbo everywhere, After 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the boat and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth and messing with this hoser named Edgar until the water had dried up, right? Then that knob Noah sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But that hosehead couldn't find nowhere to perch because there was water all over the surface of Canada, so it drowned. Super sad, He waited 7 more days and again sent out another dove who was really nervous because he saw what happened to the other dove for sure. When that dove returned to him completely hosed in the evening, there in its beak was a fresh 2-6 from the local depth. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from Canada. Beaut, The story of Moses.
Afterwards, Moses and Scotty Bowman went to the referee and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Canada, says? Let my people go, The ref said, "Okie dokie, but who is the Lord that I should obey him and let your players go, I don't know the Lord, you hoser, and I will not let Canadians go." Then they said, "Take off, The God of the Canadians has met with us. Now let us take a 30-second time out to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with moldy timbits." But the director of officiating said, "Moses and Scotty, why are you taking the players out from their penalty boxes, Get back in there, you blue-nosers." Then the referee said, "Look, the people in the stands are now numerous, and you are stopping them from watching the game, right?" Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Hey, you knob, why have you brought a kerfuffle on this team, Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to the ref to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this team with bad calls, and you have not rescued any of your players, right?" Oh, geez, Moses was pissed,
The story of the wise men.
And then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time from which the star had appeared, Then they sent them to the peg, which was like 6 beer from there, saying, "Go give her, Search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go pay him homage. Now take off, When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen its rising, until it stooped over a place where the child was. When they had saw that the star had stooped, they were overwhelmed with joy. Yeah, On entering the house, they saw the child was with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of 15 tunies, a 2-4, and a toque to keep that hose head of his warm, eh? And having been warned in a dream not to return to that gold-suck Herod, they left out for their own territories by another road or a freeway or something, eh?
Jesus at the rink.
So when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place, right? Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the GTA. When Jesus landed and saw bare people at the rink, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Yeah! As evening approaches, his buds came to him and said, "Oh, geez, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Tell those rink rats to take off, eh? So they can go to the villages and buy themselves some beaver tails or something." Jesus replied, "Sorry, eh? They don't need to take off, you hosehead. You give them something to eat. We have here only 5 timbits and a few double-doubles, you knob, and we bought them, eh?" They answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down on the Chesterfields they had set up. Taking the 5 timbits and the double-doubles and looking up to the heavens, he gave thanks and broke the bits. And then he gave them to his buds, and his buds gave them to those goal-sucks that were hanging around, eh? And then they all ate and were satisfied, right? And his buds picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children, but they don't count those because this was biblical times, and we have better equal rights now in the territories, eh?
The Gospel according to that hoser John. Chapter 1. The Word became flesh. In the beginning, there was the Word, eh? And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Oh, geez, this is already getting confusing. So, through him, all things were made, right? Without him, nothing was made that has been made. So try to wrap your head around that one, eh? In him was Molson, and that beer was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it, eh? So, there was a hoser sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might drink. He himself was not the light. He only came as a witness to the light, eh? The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him because the world was a bit slow, eh? He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him, as they were being a bunch of knobs, right? Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become sons of God, which could go on to be the opening band for Rush in '68 at the Coffin Show at the United Church in Toronto, right? So the Word became flesh, right? And made his dwelling among us, and had to wear a bunny hug and a toque because flesh gets cold, eh? John testified concerning him. He cried out, saying, "Oh, geez, this is the one I spoke about when I said, 'He who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me.' But I think he cut in line when I was out back ripping a dart. Out of the fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses, eh? Grace and truth came through Jesus Murphy. No one has ever seen God, eh? But the one and only Son, who is himself God, right? And is in the closest relationship with the Father, has made him known, eh?" John the Baptist denies being the Messiah. Now this was John's testimony when the Mounties in Fox Vegas sent priests and newfies to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, "I am not the Messiah, so take off, eh?" They asked him, "Oh, geez, then who are you? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you that rink rat?" He answered, "No." Finally, they said, "Who are you then, you knob? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself, eh?" John replied in the words of Gretzky the prophet, "I am the voice of the one calling in the bush. Make straight the way of the Lord, ye hoser." Now, the Mounties who had been sent questioned him. "Why then do you baptize if you are not that Christ hoser, nor Elijah, nor that Keener, eh?" "I baptize with Molson," John replied, "but amongst you stands one you do not know, because there's bare people in here and you can't see him, eh? He's the one who comes after me, the straps of whose boots I am not worthy to untie." This all happened in the peg, on the other side of the Six, where John was baptizing. John testifies about Jesus. The next day, John saw Jesus coming towards him and said, "Oh, geez, this bud is whom I said, a man who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me, because he probably cut in line when I was out ripping a dart, eh? I myself did not know him, but the reason I came baptizing with Molson was that he might be revealed to Canada, eh?" Then John gave his testimony. "I saw the Spirit come down from heaven as a dove, and abide upon him a great kerfuffle because he had too many Mickeys and got his gotch in a bunch over something Jesus said, right? And I myself did not know him, but the one who sent me to baptize with Molson told me, the man on whom you see the Spirit come down and remain is the one who will baptize with the holy maple syrup. I have seen and I have testified this is God's chosen one, eh? John's buds followed Jesus. The next day, John got a double-double from Timmy's with 2 of his buds. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the moose of God, eh?" When his 2 buds heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, "Take off, eh? Why you 2 hosers following me?" They said, "Hey, bud, where you staying?" "Come," he replied, "and you will see. It's only 3 beer from here, eh?" So they went and saw where he was staying, and they spent that day with him. It was about 4 in the afternoon, and they were getting kind of hungry. Keith, Wayne Gretzky's brother, was one of the 2 who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Keith did was find his brother Wayne and tell him, "Larry, eh? We found that hose head." And Keith brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "Oh, geez, you're Wayne Gretzky, eh? Son of Walter. You had 4 Stanley Cup wins and hold 61 NHL records. You're a Skogum hockey player, eh?" The next day, Jesus decided to leave for the GTA. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me, eh?" Philip, like Keith and Wayne, was from the town of Brantford. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Winnipeg, the son of Joseph, eh?" "The Peg? Can anything good come from there, eh?" Nathanael asked. "At least it's not Ontario. Now quit your chirping and give her, eh?" said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he hit his Mickey and said to him, "Here truly is a Canuck in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me, eh?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you when you were at the convenience buying a 2-4. Then Nathanael declared, "Oh, geez, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Canada, eh?" And then Jesus said, "You believe this because I told you that I saw you at the convenience, and you believe this thou? What a hose head, eh?" He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Beauty, eh? Chapter 2, eh? Jesus changes water into Molson. On the 3rd day, a bush party took place at Cabbagetown in the 6th. Jesus' mom was there, and Jesus and his buds had also been invited, and it turned into a total gong show, eh? When the beer was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "Oh, geez, they have no more Molson, eh?" "Woman, to you," Jesus replied, "my hour has not come yet, eh?" His mom said to the servants, "Do whatever this knob tells you, right?" Nearby stood 6 stone beer jars, the kind used by Newfies for ceremonial weddings, each holding from 75 to 113 liters, right? Jesus said to the servants, "Fill those jars with water, eh?" So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some oot and take it to the master of this gonger." They did, so that hoser tasted the water that had been turned into Molson. He didn't realize where it had come from, right? But the servants who had drawn it knew because they had more than a few brain cells and could remember things that happened 10 seconds ago, right? Then he called the GJ aside and said, "Everyone brings out their choice Molson first, and then the cheaper Labatt after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now, you knob." What Jesus did here in Cabbagetown of the 6 was the first of the signs through which he revealed his skookum, and his buds believed in him, yeah? After this, he booked it down to Danford with his mom and his brothers and his buds, eh? There they stayed for a few days. Jesus clears the rinks. When it was almost time for Victoria Day, Jesus went up to Fox Vegas, eh? In the rink he found people selling moose, beavers, and caribou, and others sitting at tables exchanging toonies and loonies, right? So he took a lumber and drove all those hose heads from the rink's courts, both moose and beavers, yeah? And he scattered the toonies of the money changers and overturned their tables, you know. Oh, geez, and to those who sold doves, he said, "Take off, eh? Turning my dad's hoose into a market." His buds remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your hoose will consume me," which got some of them wondering if the hoose was getting hungry, eh? The Newfies then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all of this, you knob?" Jesus answered them, "You sure goosed it now. I'll put the pucks to you, bud. Destroy this rink and I will raise it again in 3 days, eh?" They replied, "Oh, that's mint, bud. It has taken us 46 years to build this rink, and you're going to raise it in 3 days?" But the rink he had spoken of was his body. And after he had risen from the dead, his buds recalled what he had said, but it still didn't give them any insight into how to defeat him at that point since he was a zombie, right? And then they believed the scriptures and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Fox Vegas at the Victoria Day Festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name, right? But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people and how a lot of them are hoseheads, you know? He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person because he had, advanced knowledge of anatomy, Chapter 3, Jesus teaches Terry Fox. Now, there was a Pharisee, a man named Terry Fox, who was a member of the Marathon of Hope, right? He came to Jesus at night and said, "Hey, bud, we know that you are the teacher who has come from God. No one could ever perform the signs that you are doing if God were not with him, And Jesus replied, "Very truly, I tell you, no one can see the great rink of God unless they are born again." "How can someone be born when they are already old, you hosehead?" Terry asked. Yeah. Surely they cannot enter a second time into their mother's womb to be born, because that would be weird and awkward, especially at family reunions. Jesus answered, "Yeah, no, definitely. I'll tell you. No one can enter the rink of God unless they are born of Molson and the maple syrup, Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the maple gives birth to syrup. You should not be surprised at me saying, you must be born again, The wind blows whether it pleases, right? You hear its sound, But you can't tell where it's coming from or where it's going. So it is with everyone born of maple syrup." "How can this be?" Terry asked. "You are Canada's teacher, said Jesus. "And do you not understand these things?" "Oh, geez. We speak of what we know. We testify to what we have seen. But still you hosers do not accept our testimony. I have spoken to you of earthly things, and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things, No one has ever gone into heaven except for the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man. Just as Moses lifted up the snakes in the bush, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that everyone who believes may have eternal light in him, For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life, For God did not send his Son into the world to goose the world, but to save the world through him. Whomever believes him is not goosed, right? But who does not believe stands goosed already, because they have not believed the name of God's one and only Son, Jesus. And this is the verdict, So pay attention. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God, So make sure you do evil stuff where God can't see you, and be a keener only when he can see you, okay? John testifies again about Jesus. After this, Jesus and his buds went out to the Seatown bush, where he spent some time with them and baptized, Now, John was also baptizing at McHugh Bluff near Crescent Heights, because there was a plenty good source of Molson there, and people were coming and being baptized. This, of course, was before John was put into the box for ice sticking, Then a kerfuffle developed between some of John's buds and a certain Newfie over the matter of ceremonial washing. Oh, it was bad, And they were about to put pucks to each other, right? They came to John and said to him, "Hey, bud, that Keener who was with you on the other side of Victoria Park, the one who you testified about, look, he's baptizing and everyone is booked to him, To this John replied, "Oh, geez, don't get your gotcha in a bunch, A Canuck can only receive what is given them from heaven. You yourself can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but I am sent ahead of him, but only because I cut in front of him in line when he was out having a gas bear. The bridge belongs to the bridegroom, right? The bud who attends the bridegroom, waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, right? And it's now complete. He must become greater, I must become less. Beauty, The one who comes from above is above all. The one who is from Canada belongs to Canada, and speaks as one from Canada, in both French and Canadian. The one who comes from heaven is above all. He testifies to what has been seen and heard, but no one accepts his testimony, Whomever has accepted it has certified that God is truthful, right? For one whom God has sent speaks the word of God, for God gives maple syrup without limit, unlike the Coral breakfast and lunch in Walker Road in Windsor, The Father loves the Son, and has placed everything in his hands, but he dropped it because he's kind of a klutz. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life, but whoever rejects the Son will not see life, for God's wrath remains on them, and God's wrath is pretty skookum, The Gospel according to that hoser John, chapter 4. Jesus talks with a woman from Alberta. Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more buds than John. Although, definitely, it was not Jesus who baptized, but his buds, So he left Seatown and went back once more to Edmonton. Now he had to go through the south of Alberta, so he came to a town in Alberta called Red Deer, right? This was near a plot of ground Emerson had given to his son, Will Arnett. Emerson's brewery was there, and Jesus, bagged as he was from booking it, sat down in the brewery. It was about noon. When an Albertan woman came to draw a leader, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink, bud?" His buds had gone to the local dep to buy some beaver tails and homo. The Albertan woman said to him, "You are a pogie, and I am a woman from Alberta, eh? How can you ask me for a drink?" Jesus answered her, "If you knew who I was, you would have asked me, and I would have given you a Labatt." "You greasy blue-noser," the woman said. "You have nothing to draw with, and the taps are like 3 meters away from you. Where can you get this Labatt? Are you greater than our father Emerson, who wrote the crime novel Bean Fate, eh?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this beer will be thirsty again, especially if they've had some salty beer nuts. But whoever drinks the beer I give them will never be thirsty, eh? Indeed, the beer I give them will become in them a spring of Molson, welling up to eternal life, yeah?" The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this beer so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to this brewery." He told her, "Hoof it and call your husband then to come back here, eh?" "I have no husband," she replied, which means she's single. Beauty, eh? Jesus smiled to himself, knowing she's single, and said to her, "Yeah, no, you are right when you say you have had no husband. The fact is, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true, eh?" "Listen here, you skeet. I ought to drop the gloves, eh?" the woman said. "Did you just slut-shame me, or are you a prophet? Our ancestors worshipped at this brewery, but you pogies claim that the place where we must worship is in Fox Vegas." "Yeah, no, for sure," Jesus replied. "Believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither at this brewery nor in Fox Vegas. You Albertans worship what you do not know, right? We worship what we do know, for salvation is coming for Canadians, eh? Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the maple syrup and in the truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks, eh? God is maple, and his worshippers must worship in the syrup and in truth." "Ya hosehead." The woman said, "Oh, geez, I know the hoser is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he, eh?" Jesus' buds rejoin him. Just then, his buds returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman, as Jesus doesn't have much game, right? But no one asked, "What do you want, eh?" Then, leaving her beer glass, the woman went back into town and said to her people, "Oh, geez, you best be booking it to the brewery to see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the hoser we've heard so much about?" They came out of the town and made their way towards him. Meanwhile, his buds urged him, "Oh, hey, bud, eat something, will ya?" But he said to them, "I have food to eat you know nothing about, eh?" Then his buds said to each other, "Could someone have brought him food, or did that knob tell us to do a dep run for nothing?" "Oh, geez, don't get your gotch in a bunch, eh?" Jesus said. "My food is to do the will of him who sent me, and to finish his work because he took off early from working the rigs to get a Mickey and go to the rink. Don't you have a saying, 'Quick 6 for the ditch'? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Even now, the one who reaps draws a wage and harvests a crop of barley for eternal beer, so that the sower and the reaper may be hosed together. Thus the saying, 'One drives and another drinks,' is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor, eh?" Many Albertans believe. Many of the Albertans from that territory believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me everything I ever did, right?" So when the Albertans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days because he didn't have much going on that week anyways, and the rinks were all closed for the weekend, right? Because of his words, many more became believers. Beauty, eh? They said to the woman, "Oh, wow, eh? We no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this bud over here is really the Savior of Canada." Jesus heals a Mountie son. After the 2 days, he left for Edmonton. When he arrived in Edmonton, those hosers welcomed him. Beauty, eh? They had seen all that he had done in Fox Vegas at the Victoria Day Festival, for they also had been there, but more towards the back, so they had to hear about it from a friend who was closer, right? Once more he visited the rink in Edmonton, where he turned the water into Molson. And there was a certain Mountie whose son lay sick at Hastings Lake, eh? When this man heard that Jesus had arrived into Edmonton from Seatown, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. Unless you people see signs and wonders, Jesus told him, you will never believe, eh? The Mountie said, oh, geez, book it before my kid kicks the bucket. Take off, eh? Jesus replied, your son will live. The hoser took Jesus at his word and was booking it. While he was still on his way, his buds met him with the news that his boy was living. When he inquired as to the time of day when his son got better, they said to him, yesterday at 1 p.m, the fever left him, eh? Then the Mountie realized that was the exact time at which Jesus had said to him, your son will live. And so he and his whole household believed. This was the second sign Jesus performed after coming from Seatown to Edmonton, The Gospel according to the hoser John, chapter 5, the healing at the rink. So, sometime later, Jesus went up to Fox Vegas for one of the festivals, right? Now, there is a rink in Fox Vegas near the RCMP office. Here, a great number of disabled rink rats used to hang, the blind, goal sucks, and the lame. One who was there had been a goal suck for 5 whole seasons, eh? When Jesus saw him hanging there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to be a skookum player, bud? Sir, the goal suck replied, I have no one to help me play defense when the other team has the puck. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me, eh? Then Jesus said to him, get up, you hosehead. Pick up your lumber and skate. At once, the man was cured. He picked up his lumber and stole the puck 4 times that game. Yeah. The day on which this took place was a Saturday, right? And so the rink's referees said to the man who had been healed, it is Saturday, eh? The rules forbid you to touch the puck when it's over the center red line, you knob. But he replied, the man who made me well said to me, pick up your lumber and play, eh? He didn't teach me all the rules or anything. I'm out here doing my best, So they asked him, who is this rink rat that told you to pick it up and play without telling you that icing has been a rule for a long time, eh? The player who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus hung a Roger and booked it. Later, Jesus found him at the rink and said to him, see, you are well again. Stop being a lazy hockey player or something worse might happen to you, eh? Like a Winnipeg handshake from your teammates. The man went away and told the referees that it was Jesus who made him a better player. The authority of the Son. So, because Jesus was doing these things on Saturday, the referees began to try to put him in the penalty box, right? In his defense, Jesus said to them, my pops is always at his practicing hockey to this very day, and I too am practicing. For this reason, they tried all the more to eject him. Not only was he breaking the rules of hockey by playing more than 82 games a season, but he was even calling God his own father, making himself equal with God. And that's pretty pretentious, eh? You didn't hear Gretzky calling himself God, did you? Jesus gave them this answer. Very truly I tell you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son does also. Kind of like monkeys, eh? For the Father loves the Son, and shows him all he does, except for why he kept going out for groceries a few times a week when Mom wasn't home. Yes, he will show him even greater hockey plays than these, so that you will be amazed. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son passes the puck to whom he is pleased to give it. Moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment to the referees, that all may honor the game as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the game does not honor the Father who sent him. Whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal beer, and will not be assigned a penalty, but has crossed over from the penalty box to the ice. Very truly I tell you, overtime is coming, and has now come when the rink rats will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who will hear will play, some in the minor leagues, but some in the NHL, eh? For teams like the Oilers and the Maple Leafs. Yeah, that would be mint, eh? For as the Father has skills in himself, so he has granted the Son also to have skills on the ice. And he has given him authority to play because he is Canadian. Oh geez,
Do not be amazed at this, for a time out is coming when all who are in their penalty boxes will hear his whistle and come out. Those who have done what is good will rise to play, and those who have done what is evil will rise to be ejected, eh? By myself, I can do nothing. I judge only as I hear, right? And my judgment is just, for I seek not to please myself, but only sponsors like Timmy's and ESPN, eh? Testimonies about Jesus. If I testify about myself, my testimony is not true because I've polished off 4 Mickeys and I don't know what I'm saying, right? There is another who testifies in my favor, and I know that his testimony about me is true, eh? You have sent to that hosehead John, and he has testified to the truth, eh? Not that I accept human testimony, or even the dog's testimony, but I mention it that you may be saved. John was a lamp that burned and gave light, and you chose for a time to enjoy his light. Oh, jeez, I don't know what the heck I'm going on about. I have testimony weightier than that of John, right? For the works that the Father has given me to finish, the very works I am doing, testify that the Father has sent me. Plus, I think I have it written down here somewhere, too. And the Father who has sent me, he himself has testified concerning me. So take off, eh? You have never heard his voice, nor seen his form, nor does his word dwell in you, for you do not believe the one he has sent. You study the rule books diligently, because you think that in them you will have eternal beer, right? These are the very rule books that testify about me, yet you refuse to come to me to enjoy a twofer. Well, give her, bud. I do not accept glory from human beings, but I know you, right? I know that you do not have the love of Canada in your hearts. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. But if someone else comes in his own name, you will accept him. So take off, you knob, before I give you a Winnipeg handshake and walk around in your toque. But do not think I will accuse you before my dad, eh? Your accuser is Moses, on whom your hopes are set for a skookum season, right? If you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But since you do not believe what he wrote, how are you going to believe what I say, eh? The referees looked amongst each other and said, Boy, this guy's hosed, eh? The Gospel according to that hoser John. Chapter 6. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Some time after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the North Saskatchewan River, right? And bare people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing those Saints Decians at the Bonspiel rink, eh? Then Jesus went up to a higher spot in a white mud park and sat down with his buds. Civic Day was near. When Jesus looked up, he saw a great crowd coming towards him. He freaked a little and said to Philip, Where shall we buy some timbits for these people to mock, eh? He asked this only to test him, for he already knew that there was a Timmy's about 1 beer from there. Philip answered him, It would take more than 400 toonies or something to buy enough timbits for each one to have a bite, not even counting the singles and double-doubles people might want. Another of his buds, Keith, Wayne Gretzky's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 barley waters and 2 small beaver tails, but that still leaves us about 4,998 beaver tails short, right? Jesus said, I could hear you, hoser. There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there, but remember, this was biblical times, and they didn't count the women and the children like we do now in the territories because we have equal rights now, eh? Jesus then took the barley waters, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the beaver tails, eh? When they all had enough to muck, he said to his buds, Grab the leftovers, eh? Let nothing be wasted, for we might come across some pogie that might want it. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the cans of a suitcase of barley waters left over by those who had become hosed, eh? After the people saw the signs Jesus performed, they began to say, Oh, geez, surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world, right? Jesus, knowing that they had intended to come and make him king by force, grabbed his lumberjacket and booked it to a bar by himself. Jesus walks on the water. When evening came, his buds went down to the river, eh, where they got into a boat and set off across the river for the Edmonton Valley Zoo to sneak in and play with the otters and the house hippos, right? By now, it was dark, and just like a hosehead, Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough for sure. When they had rowed about 1 or 2 clicks, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, right? And they were shit-baked, eh? But he said to them, It's just me, eh? Don't be afraid, you knobs. Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Really? The next day, Bare people that had stayed on the opposite shore of the river realized that only one boat had been there, right? And that Jesus had not entered it with his buds, but they had gone away alone. Then some boats from the Edmonton Rowing Club landed near the place where the people had mucked the beaver tails after the Lord had given thanks, eh? Once those hosers realized that neither Jesus nor his buds were there, they got into the boats and went to Fort Saskatchewan in search of Jesus. Jesus, the barley water of life. When they found him on the other side of the river, they asked him, "Hey, you hoser, when did you get here, bud?" Jesus answered, "Oh, geez, bud, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you drank the Molson and are hosed, eh? Do not work for barley water that spoils, but for Molson that endures to eternal life, which the bartender of man will give you. For on him, God the Father has placed his seal of approval, right?" Then they asked him, what must we do, eh, to do the works that God requires? Are we even qualified for the gig? Jesus answered, "The works of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." Pretty simple, eh? So they asked him, "What sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you?" "Will you give her, eh? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them timbits from Timmy's to eat, eh?" Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the timbits from Timmy's, but it is my Father who gives you the true timbits from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from the heaven and gives life to the world, ya hosehead." "Yeah, no," they said. "Pretty sure it was Moses that did it. I mean, we have the receipt and everything, right?" Then Jesus declared, "I am the timbits of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty, eh? But as I told you, knobs, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All those the Father gives me will book to me, and whoever books to me, I will never drive away, but mainly because I lost my license a few weeks ago for being over the limit, eh? For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me." And for the newfies that just joined us, that would be God, eh? "This is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but rise them up at the last day, which will probably be a Monday morning, so they have time to enjoy the weekend, right? For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal beer, and I will rise them up at the last day, right before the giant asteroid arrives." At this time, the Albertans there began to chirp about him because he said, "I am the timbits that came down from heaven." Another said, "Wait, are we just going to gloss over that asteroid coming?" Others said, "Oh, geez, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know, eh? How can he now say, 'I came down from heaven'?" "Stop chirping, you hosers," Jesus answered. "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, for he's been working on his caricature work in the art class he's been taking on Thursdays. And I will rise them up on the last day, eh? It is written in the life, history, and travels of Kagi Gaga Bo by George Copway. They will all be taught by God. Everyone who has heard the Father and learned from him comes to me, eh? No one has seen the Father except for the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father, because everyone else's faces tend to melt when they see him, you know. Very truly I tell you again, eh? The one who believes has eternal beer. I am the timbits of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they kicked the bucket. But here is the timbits that come down from the heavens, which anyone may eat and not die, because it comes from Timmy's and wasn't sitting out on the bush for a week, getting all moldy, eh? I am the living timbits that come down from heaven, you blue-nosers. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I give for the world to have life." Then the Albertans began to chirp more sharply amongst themselves. "How can this man give us his flesh to eat? Doesn't he know about prions and the disease Kuru, eh?" Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, hosers, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no eternal life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal beer, and I will rise them up on the last day, right? For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real Molson. Whomever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever, He said this while teaching in the rinks in the Yukon. Many buds desert Jesus. On hearing it, many of his buds said, "This is getting a little weird for me, eh? I think I'm gonna be booking it back to town now." Aware that his buds were chirping about this, Jesus said to them, "Does this offend you, you pogey? Then what if you could see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? I can fly, eh? I'm a golden god! The Spirit gives beer. The flesh is sans decians, right? The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit. Yet there are some of you who do not believe, eh?" For Jesus has known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him because he read their private journals while they were sleeping. He went on to say, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them." From this time, many of his buds turned back and no longer followed him. "You do not want to leave too, do you?" Jesus asked the 12. Wayne Gretzky answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal beer. We have come to believe and to know that you are the holy maple syrup of God." Then Jesus replied, "Have I not chosen you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil." He meant Judas, the son of Robert William Picton, who, though one of the 12, was later to betray him. Spoiler alert, eh? Jesus flips out at the rink. And so Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, "It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but if you have made it a den of thieves." And the blind and the lame came to him and in the temple, and he healed them, Yeah. And when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things he did, they were like, "Oh, wow, man, get out, Yehozer?" And the children crying in the temple and said, "Hosanna, son of David." They were sore and displeased and said unto him, Hearest thou what they say? And Jesus shout unto them, Yea, have ye never read, out of the mouth of babes and sucking thou hast perfected praise? Yehozer? The story of Easter. Very early, on the first day of the week, which is usually called Monday, they were on their way to the tomb, It was just after sunrise, and they were still a little bagged from the weekend's events, what with the Bonspiel and the crucifixion, right? They asked each other, "Oh, geez, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb, Then they looked up and saw that the stone had been rolled away. Yeah, the stone was very large and probably weighed, like 200 kilograms, right? They entered the tomb, and as they did, they saw a young man dressed in a brand new lumber jacket and painted Easter eggs hidden throughout the tomb, along with an empty 2-6. They were alarmed. "Don't be shit-baked, he said. "You were looking for Jesus of the Peg, who was nailed to that big letter T, right? But he has risen. He is not here, See that place where they had put him. Now take off, Tell his buds and Peter he's going ahead of you to Edmonton. There you will see him. It will be just as he told you." Beauty, The women were shaking and confused, They went out and ran away from the tomb, and immediately reported this to their local RCMP office, Jesus rose from the dead early on the first day of the week, but he didn't start to hunger for brains until a bit afterwards, right? He appeared first to Mary Magdalene. She went and told those who had been with him. She found them crying. They were very sad, for they didn't know how to kill a zombie, and were afraid the infection would spread throughout the Yukon, right? They heard that Jesus was undead, and that she had seen him, but they did not believe it because they knew she was prone to getting hosed before noon, Hang a Larry and hit subscribe and leave a comment and thumbs up, Really helps us out. Ooh, and look, you got another video you could watch, Okay, take off now, Have a good day. Bye.